Shifting our focus, Russia and Western countries have exchanged 26 high-profile international prisoners in the biggest swap of its kind after the Cold War.
Right, him. Turkey mediated the landmark exercise. US President Joe Biden hailed the prisoner swap with Russia and said that this was a feat of diplomacy. Take a look.
Moments ago, the families and I were able to speak to them on the telephone from the Oval Office. They're out of Russia. Earlier today, they were flown to Turkey, and soon they'll be wheels up on their way home to see their families. This is an incredible relief for all the family members gathered here. It's a relief to the friends and colleagues all across the country who've been praying for this day for a long time. The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined the difficult, complex negotiations at my request, and I personally thank them all again. And I've thanked them personally, and I'll thank them again.
Meanwhile, a hostage and wrongful detainee flag was hoisted beneath the American flag at the White House on Thursday. The flag was hoisted for the first time ever in celebration.
Russian President Vladimir Putin met with the released prisoners who arrived in Moscow on Thursday. He congratulated 8 Russian citizens who have been released as part of the exchange deal, adding that of those who have been released will be conferred with state honors.
First of all, I want to congratulate you all on your return to your motherland. Now, I want to address those of you who are directly related to military service. I want to thank you for your loyalty to your oath, to your duty, and to your motherland, which has never forgotten about you for a minute. And here you are home.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz met with the released detainees who arrived in Germany on Thursday. He said that the release came as a relief for prisoners freed from Russia and Belarus, who were not expecting for any kind of exchange to happen now and were scared for their lives. Scholz further added that the difficult swap had saved lives.
The prisoner exchange ceremony at the Ankara airport saw some milestone swaps designed to build bridges between Russia and the West. Turkish officials said Russia has released US journalist Evan Gershkovich and former US Marine Paul Whelan. On the other side, Germany is reported to have released Russian Vadim Karsakov, who was in prison for killing a former Chechen rebel commander in a brazen assassination.
Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was detained in Yekaterinburg in March 2023 and convicted in July. He was accused of spying. The US had denounced the trial as a sham. Gershkovich was recently sentenced to 16 years in jail. Meanwhile, former US Marine Paul Whelan was working as a corporate security executive from the US when detained in Moscow in 2018. He too was accused of espionage. Whelan and the US government have denied the charges, and the detention was a source of tension between both the countries.
I spent a lot of time with the families of Evan and Paul and Alsu. Most of the time, as you can imagine, those are tough conversations, but not today. Today, excuse me, today was a very good day, and we're going to build on it, drawing inspiration and continued courage from it for all of those who are held hostage or wrongfully detained around the world.
This comes as the US president also sang happy birthday to the released Russian-American journalist Alsu Kumarsheva's daughter.
You all know we have a tradition in the Biden family. We sing happy birthday on any birthday. You ready? All of you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miriam. Happy birthday to you.
The White House also said that it had been working on a deal to free the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who passed away in February this year. Navalny was found dead in a Russian prison nestled in western Siberia. US Vice President and presidential contestant Kamala Harris revealed that the exchange includes the release of political prisoners who worked with Navalny.
This is the first prisoner exchange between Russia and the West since 2022. when star U.S. basketball player Brittany Griner was swapped for convicted Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout. It is also the biggest exchange since 2010, when 14 alleged spies were exchanged between Russia and the West.
Well, reacting to the prisoner exchange, the United Nations welcomed the release of 24 detainees released. NATO hailed the work of allies coming together for the prisoner swap. Germany said the release of Vadim Krasikov, a Russian convicted of a murder in 2019 of a former Chechen militant in Berlin, was not an easy decision.
According to analysts, the prisoner exchange, it's the biggest since the Cold War. It was a bigger deal than they had expected.
It's also important to point out the moral asymmetry in the type of prisoners that have been released. On the Russian side, it's cyber hackers, sleeper agents, and in one case, a prisoner who was convicted of murder in Germany and was serving a life sentence. On the side of prisoners being released from Russia, it's primarily journalists, human rights activists, and anti-war protesters. So the moral quality of the types of groups that are being released is quite different in both cases.
And our correspondent Susan Tharani explains to us as to what this major prisoner exchange reveals to us about the current state of U.S.-Russia ties. Take a listen.
Russia has released Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, who the U.S. says was wrongfully accused of espionage as part of a large prisoner swap with the United States and Europe. Gershkovich, along with other Americans, was exchanged for Russians held here in the United States as well as Europe, including a convicted murderer. The swap, involving 24 prisoners in at least 6 countries, was negotiated over several months and is considered the largest and most complex East-West prisoner swap since the Cold War. U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed the release, saying, quote, "They are safe, free, and have begun their journeys back into the arms of their families." The deal highlights the challenges of dealing with countries like Russia that the West says uses detention as a tool of leverage and raises concerns about encouraging further detentions. The U.S. has pursued several large prisoner swaps with countries that it considers hostile, including Venezuela and Iran, despite criticism that such deals may encourage the arrest of more Americans.
Susan further elucidates on the significance of Biden's outreach to leaders of certain NATO nations following the swap. Listen to this.
President Joe Biden's calls with these leaders acknowledges the important role they played in facilitating this complex prisoner exchange, which involved 24 people and 7 nations. While the swap is seen as a diplomatic success, President Biden also hoped that it would be a legacy-defining moment for him. Addressing the nation shortly after the Americans were released and the swap was successful, he said what transpired proved that global alliances do matter. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre made sure to mention that Vice President Kamala Harris, quote, played a critical role in this diplomacy at a number of moments leading to the prisoner exchange. Harris, of course, is the Democratic presidential challenger against former President Donald Trump.